Hello, everybody. Ryan from the Headwaters Science Center. And if you visited HSC at any point in the last year or so, you've probably noticed this tank out on the exhibit floor and these fish in this tank. They're not actually in this tank anymore. This is old footage. I'll peek behind the curtain there. But I want to talk a little bit about the process that these fish have gone through in their time at HSC. So these fish that you're seeing in here are rainbow trout. And these rainbow trout came to us actually as eggs in November of 2021. We hatched them here, and they've been growing at HSC, like I said, over the course of the last almost year now. And so these trout are here as a part of a program called Trout in the Classroom that is a partnership between Trout Unlimited. They work with a bunch of different state DNRs. And basically the idea is they put these tanks in classrooms in similar education institutions that work with kids. The kids get an opportunity to, help raise the fish and see the fish go through their life cycles. And then eventually what happens is they get released out into the wild. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of what happened sort of with our fish here and where they ended up and sort of what the plan is for the future with these guys. So, like I mentioned, one of the cool parts about having this tank for a year at HSC is that we get to experience all the different life phases that the trout that we have in our tank go through over that time. And trout are kind of unique in that they sort of have these very distinct life phases that not all fish or not all vertebrates necessarily have. So being able to experience those has been pretty cool for us. And so, like pretty much all fish, trout start out their lives as eggs. And so female trout make these nests in the bottom of typically streams, but somewhere that is really highly oxygenated water with a gravel bottom, generally is what you're looking for. And so they make these little nests. They're called redds, they're nests. So they sort of dig in the bottom of the stream, and then they get fertilized after the female lays them in the nest, and they sort of cover the nest back up. And so our trout obviously didn't have a gravel bottom stream with a female trout to bury them in the gravel and protect them. Ours came to us in a tub or a bag in November of 2021. And so for the first couple of weeks, our trout lived in this basket. And we had this basket hanging over the edge of our tank. And if you had come by HSC at this time and seen this tank, what you would have seen is that we had a tank that was all wrapped up in cardboard because they're pretty light sensitive. Again, they're typically buried when they're eggs, and so they don't get a whole lot of light that comes into them. So our tank was all wrapped up in cardboard to keep the light out. We had this basket hanging over the edge of the tank, and then we had a couple of aerators sitting directly below it to oxygenate the eggs. It's after they hatch that trout and similar types of fish go into sort of a unique phase of their life. You'll hear them called alevin during this phase. And what alevin are trout that are freshly hatched. And what's a little bit different about them compared to a lot of other fish is that when trout and salmon and similar fish hatch, they actually carry their yolk sac around with them for a little while. And so with most fish, when they hatch, they're pretty similar functionally to adults. They're able to swim, they're able to find food, etc., etc. But for trout and salmon, they really can't do that. When they hatch, they mostly can't swim, so they just kind of keep hanging out at the bottom of wherever they hatch. And so in our case, they hatch and they stay in the basket for a little while longer because they really can't swim. And then they'll stay like this for a couple weeks until they consume that yolk sac and then are able to free swim and find food. And then once they can swim freely and catch their own food and eat their own food that isn't just their yolk sac, they become fry. This usually happens, like I said, a couple weeks after they hatch. Every once in a while, you'll see people with trout and salmon in particular refer to a sort of middle stage between the alevin and the fry. Hear these often called button fry because you can still see the spot on their belly where their yolk sac was and it sort of looks like a button. You'll hear them called swim up fry every once in a while because they tend to swim vertically more so than horizontally really early on when they're just starting to swim. But fry is a good general term for any sort of like young juvenile fish, and that applies to trout and salmon as well. And it's at this point that your trout have sort of reached the juvenile phase of their life, and you'll hear a whole lot of different names for different parts of this juvenile phase. But really, mostly what they're just doing at this point is just growing. They're functionally not changing very much. They're able to swim, they're able to catch food, they're still not able to reproduce, is sort of the phase that we're in now. And like I said, so what they do in this phase is they grow, and they grow a lot. And so for us at HSC during this phase, our trout extended from being in this one tank that we've been looking at up until now, all the way out to 2 and then eventually even 3 other tanks, including one that's pretty substantially bigger than the tank they initially started in. And so as they're growing over those next few months, you'll hear different names for different life phases. You'll hear people call them fingerlings as sort of the phrase after fry. Par is a term you'll hear sometimes to sort of describe a phase of these juvenile trout. Certain trout go through a phase called smolting, which is when they would normally travel out to the ocean or similar large body of water. But all of these terms are largely describing just different juvenile phases of the trout. And again, this is a phase when they are able to swim freely, they're able to catch and eat food, but they are not able to reproduce. And the trout that we released out into the wild weren't yet adults at that point. They generally are going to hit adulthood after a couple years, and the ones that we released out into the wild were only about 7 months old. And so they still would have been considered probably par, is what most people would have called them at that phase. And that would probably still be the same phase that these ones that you're seeing on screen right now would be considered. These are trout that are from the same group of eggs as the one we released out into the wild, but I shot this footage a month or so after we released a batch of them. So these are a little bit older than the ones that we actually ended up releasing, but still more or less in the same life phase. And that line between fry and sort of post-fry juvenile, whatever label you want to put on it, largely ends up being a descriptor for the pattern on the side. They become par once they start sort of looking like the species of trout that they are. And at this age, they are, as you can see, very capable swimmers. They're able to get all around the tank pretty much at will whenever they feel like it. They're also voracious eaters. And if you ever want to see us feeding the trout, you can swing by HSC pretty much any day after about 4-ish o'clock. Sometime between 4 o'clock and our close time at 5 is generally when we feed the trout.
It feels like it is.
Dude, I'm gonna play it up. Well, no, you might have to be home.
Underneath this tree would be a nice place to start. Oh, okay. The cooler can be filled with water. Don't let it tip, though. Somebody's going to keep our count. All right.
Whoa. You say how many. Goodbye.
Bye, my
We should
baby.
come up with some things like farewell. Was that you?
See you later.
You
You're
take-
out of the
I'll take your
tank.
net. You take this net. Give me the edge. We were counting, remember?
Whoa. Yeah, this is too many. Too many to count. So we'll take some back out. Come on, boys. Oh, you are active. 3, 4,
It just
5,
feels like a good place to start over here where they can...
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How about 10? 3, 4, 5.
Plenty of black flies out here.
Yeah, look at the hatchery underneath that bridge. There's a million of them under there.
That was
That's,
9.
that's good eating for a little rainbow trout, probably.
Yeah.
9.
We don't want to put our water in here, so we want to get
Are
rid
you
of this
doing the
water.
cumulative? So we're at
9.
11.
We're at 9.
Yeah, but the
You
first
have the
2,
cooler?
so there's 11.
11.
You have the whole cooler, so grab the lid if you need it down.
11.
Why are we worried about putting our water in here?
I don't trust our water as much as I trust our fish, is all. I just...
9. There's 10 more. 10 more.
Suppose it makes it easier to
Is that
count too if
21?
we're not just
21?
dumping.
Right, and the fish have protected themselves from anything that might be in our water. And so if there is something in there, we've been tested for disease, but if anything started up, then they should be resistant to that already. Because they look healthy. I don't see any spotting.
7.
They look healthy. There's no... They're all vigorous, and they're seeming like they like our spot here.
11.
Have we weighed these guys lately? I know we
didn't
were
weigh
doing
this
that.
much, but we have the bunch at home. We know it's bigger.
Yeah, that's true.
It's at 35. Do you have
35. Yep.
And I think we're only going to do 2 more. So there's 37 just got released.
Bye, baby.
Goodbye.
All right, your water's ready.
Oh, 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 oh.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm not
Lord.
worried about our water. I just want to be extra cautious so that we show them that we care.
Working our way upstream, just like the trout are gonna have to. Yeah, that's what I've heading over towards. Let's see what those flies are up to. Ooh, baby.
Yeah. Let me take an edge.
Yeah. Got some shed exoskeletons of something down here too, something a little bigger.
moly.
So yeah, those are all little flies.
Oh, Jesus, I would hate to wake them up.
Heading across the street. Both ways. So is there a specific appeal to going by?
Our access corridor begins. We have easement through here, so
Yeah.
begins right here. I was just wondering if there was a nice way down here.
Maybe around the other side there.
Yeah, there's a pool back in there I wanted to think about, but I don't really. That's where the good bugs are, back in that pool.
The bugs like the stagnant water to hatch
A
in.
little bit better back in there, and that's where they're going to get fed from, is that pool back there. I get the best bugs around up here. Stone flies of 3 or so different varieties, 4 sometimes. Lots of mayflies, dragonflies, caddisfly everywhere. And that's the good gathering spot. That's essentially the food source. I don't think we get much by just delivering them here than we had over there. We might as well bring the other bunch over there too.
Yeah.
They want to work up here though. That food's coming to them down this run, which is about, I think it's 12 miles.
And so we had this river assigned to us from the start, right? But we kind of had our leeway as far as what spot on the river.
When and what spot, as long as it was in Beltrami County, because they were reared in Beltrami County, so we wanted to release them in this is Beltrami County's bunch. So we're gonna go over there. There's no real advantage over here, unless we wanted to bring them out to that pool up there. That pool is where the bugs are. Not the main course, but in that backwater. But it's still feeding the whole thing. Those bugs are going to get born out and come up.
That's a long wade with a cooler all the way back.
It's a long way for what we get, for what the fish can swim to if they choose. Yeah. So let's just release again under that tree. That seemed like they seemed happy when they were released, didn't they? So we'll go with that as our indicator.
The best metric. How happy do they seem?
That's the waste of a swim. But not way.
See the treacherous terrain I'm having to scale to get down into this stream with y'all. And here's our release point underneath the tree here. So we're thinking about releasing them a little further upstream. There's a little stagnant pool up there, but the effort in to benefit out for us probably isn't going to be worth it. So we're going to release the second batch just right in the same spot we did the first one. I got the easy job here. I just gotta make sure I don't drop a camera in the water. They gotta carry stuff.
Oh, we have
The prime number of that video here. I'm happy to take the video.
yeah.
I thought this was a good release place right under here. You can take the current and the calm. I'll stabilize the fluid.
Somebody's stopping to rubberneck us. Oh no, just turning around.
6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 14. 14. 14. We can keep the 37 in a separate part of our brain. So here comes 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26,
27, 28, 29,
31,
33,
33. Wow. 33. Come on, boys. 33, 35,
36, 37,
38, 39, and
40.
40.
It's 43. 45 for 6.
48, 49, 49 is 52. This is going to be it. I don't know, I'm having some
54.
melancholy downers.
56.
Opened all our presents up and now.
Oh, this one.
56. Should we keep
That's the
this
same one.
It
We
is.
did get that last one, and it's this one. We know it
He's
now.
a trickster.
The trickster.
Oh,
the last
baby. Have
Give it a
good
kiss.
life.
Give it a kiss. Give it a kiss.
Oh,
I'll
you
kiss
can
it.
kiss it. Oh,
Nope, it's back in there. We'll never catch him.
he doesn't want to go.
This 57.
Probably would invite me back.
Liked working at the science center too much.
Oh, bye, baby.
57.
So,
So it's 57 total, or just 57 in that cooler?
37.
And that cooler was 57.
All right.
Yep.
So what do we have? 57 plus 37 is 94.
yep.
94 fish.
Wow. Have a good life, guys. We'll miss you.
Well, let's be honest. We like the other fish just a little bit better and maintain all along. We love them, but almost as much as the others. We have to be honest.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a deep spot along that. The rushing waters of the Clearwater River. So that was 94 trout that we just released. Those were eggs that we got in November. And so they hatched like December probably.
3 or 4 weeks after we got them.
And so those are about 6 month old that we've had those. And do we know roughly how many eggs we started with?
The document said 300, but I didn't feel 300 because I didn't take that many dead away. I thought maybe 10% at most died, so I think we got a smaller bunch.
It's interesting. It feels like they expected like a much bigger fatality rate than what we had based on the size of the tank that they gave us in timeline. Because the size that we had would not have fit in the tank.
We wouldn't have been able to hold what we had in that tank, right?
So we ended up divvying them up kind of half and half like a couple months ago already.
Yeah.
And those were rainbow trout, specifically steelhead. Were they hatchery-born ones?
They came from Washington, hatchery in Washington State.
Okay.
So they came from the west.
Which is where rainbow trout are native to.
Native to.
So it's interesting because we're stocking a fish here that is not native to this area, but is...
But it's on the range now because of the stock range.
It's been stocked here for 100 years. Yeah. And so, how big are we expecting those trout to potentially get?
Just over a pound to 2 would be a good size to catch and eat.
So, I don't know, guesstimate probably, what, 8-10 grams right now? So
It'll
probably get to be...
So we're going to get them to 900 grams?
Yeah.
100 times bigger?
So 900 grams, yeah, it's about 2 pounds is about what 900 grams would be. Yeah.
That'd be as big as they'll get likely here.
And that's not typical for how they would go if they were like in the native range and actually getting out to the ocean. They get bigger in that context, we were saying, right?
They would, and this place is chosen because they actually dominate these waters. There's not a lot of predators for them in here, so They're going to have a good chance.
So is this a river where is there already an established population
There should be some brooks
here?
in here. There should be some brook trout here.
Are there established rainbows in here already too?
Well, from the years previous, but
Okay.
not naturally. But the brook is our fish, and it should be here as well.
And so do we know the conditions for a brook trout? Is that pretty much what a rainbow trout is looking for
similar
too?
in size, similar in
Yeah.
condition, demand, need, all that is, and that's one of the reasons why we're here with them. This site was chosen by the DNR for release of our fish, and also the fish from Gene Dillon Elementary. They brought their fish up here. Theirs are in already.
Do we know how many other places in Beltrami County are doing this?
4 others. We're the 5th, and if everybody has similar numbers, there should have been 500 to 600 fish released this spring from this program.
And they've been getting like staggered over the last few weeks, the releases, right? Because we were helping out with.
They released theirs last week, and so this is the last release date.
Okay.
So we're right at the end. It's over. The release is over now.
Well, good luck to those fish out
Till
there.
next year, and
Yeah.
the program is in question. There was a little bit of budget tinkering around, so we'll hopefully the legislators get all that straight and put the environmental programs back on the top shelf where they belong, because it's a good project for kids that are learning about these animals, and now they can come to this Headwaters Science Center and see where their fish are moving to for the next couple of years.
Because we are keeping a population of them at HSC too for
about 60.
a while.
It's probably slightly smaller than we brought out here, about 60 we think. So
And we can use in educational contexts.
and yeah, and in their natural manner, which is as a food source for the ecosystem of which we are a part.
Yeah. And then, assuming all goes well for the rainbow trout that we released, after a year and a half, maybe 2 more years, they'll reach their adult phase of their life, as defined by their ability to reproduce and have their own babies. And trout can reproduce multiple times over the course of their life. Like I said, their first breeding usually happens at year 2 or 3, but they can live upwards of like 10 or 11 years. They're pretty well documented. So multiple breeding seasons is very possible for them. And as I've been working on recording and editing this video, we actually have another batch of trout eggs that are due to arrive pretty soon here. So December 7th, 2022, we're due to get another batch of eggs, and we're going to start this whole process all over again. So if you want to see it from the beginning, I said start out in early December, and we'll probably be releasing on a pretty similar schedule again sometime summer 2023. So if you want to see the trout go through all these phases again, like I said, swing by and check them out that whole time. Thanks for listening and watching, guys, and hopefully we'll see you around HSC.